Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Jamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavidikacharya Ashtotar Tata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavidikacharya Ashtotar Tata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, give me 1 second here. So, oh, is it 25? Okay, get this for me. Sorry. Got to get another one. Thanks. On this 23rd day of February, 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 2, entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized, text 25 on page 92. Avyakto ayam achintyo ayam avikaryo ayam uchyate tasmad evam viditvainam nanushochitum arhasi avyakto yamachintyo yam avikaryo yamuchyate tasmadevam viditvainam nanushochitum arhasi avyakto yamachintyo yam avikaryo yamuchyate tasmadevam viditvainam nanushochitum arhasi avyakto yamachintyo yam avikaryo yam uchyate tasmat evam viditvainam nanushochitum arhasi. No, not yet. In the back. Go ahead. Avyakto yamachintyo yam avikaryo yam uchyate tasmadevam viditvainam nanushochitum arhasi. Avyakto yamachintyo yam avikaryo yamuchyate tasmat evam viditvainam nanushochitum arhasi. Avyakto yamachintyo yam avikaryo yamuchyate tasmat evam viditvainam nanushochitum arhasi. Mataji? Avyakto yamachintyo yam avikaryo yamuchyate tasmat evam viditvainam nanushochitum arhasi. Zoomland.
Avyakto yam achintyo yam
Avyakto yamachintyo yam
avikaryo yam uchyate
avikaryo yamuchyate
tasmat evam viditvainam
tasmat evam viditvainam
nanushochitum arhasi.
nanushochitum arhasi. Avyakta, invisible. Ayam, this soul. Achintyaha, inconceivable. Ayam, this soul. Avikaryaha, unchangeable. Ayam, this soul. Uchyate is said. Tasmat, therefore, evam, like this. Viditva, knowing it well. Enam, this soul. Na, do not. Anushochitum, to lament. Arhasi, you deserve. Lord Krishna said to Arjuna, it is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, and immutable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. Purport. As described previously, the magnitude of the soul is so small for our material calculation that he cannot be seen even by the most powerful microscope. Therefore, he is invisible. As far as the soul's existence is concerned, no one can establish his existence experimentally beyond the proof of Shruti, or Vedic wisdom. We have to accept this truth because there is no other source of understanding the existence of the soul, although it is a fact by perception. There are many things we have to accept solely on the grounds of superior authority. No one can deny the existence of his father, based upon the authority of his mother. There is no source of understanding the identity of the father except by the authority of the mother. Similarly, there is no source of understanding the soul except by studying the Vedas. In other words, the soul is inconceivable by human experimental knowledge. The soul is consciousness and conscious. That also is the statement of the Vedas, and we have to accept that. Unlike the bodily changes, there is no change in the soul. As eternally unchangeable, the soul remains atomic in comparison to the infinite Supreme Soul. The Supreme Soul is infinite, and the atomic soul is infinitesimal. Therefore, the infinitesimal soul, being unchangeable, can never become equal to the infinite soul, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This concept is repeated in the Vedas in different ways, just to confirm the stability of the conception of the soul. Repetition of something is necessary in order that we understand the matter thoroughly, without error. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, more qualities of the soul are being revealed. Avyakta, invisible. Who can deny that? I don't see the soul. I see a lot of bodies. One of the reasons it's so invisible because it's so tiny. We can't see the proton, we can't see the atom, we can't see those little things either. But the difference is that the soul is dynamic because it's conscious. That consciousness is the essential difference between matter and spirit. Spirit is conscious, or unconsciousness, and matter is unconscious. So matter moves and works and interacts by the impetus of consciousness. This whole creation is only organized, is only moving because of the consciousness of Krishna. I'm listening to lectures every day, and there's so many pertinent things that come up for the Bhagavad Gita class. So Prabhupada is speaking to these are the early audiences. This is 22nd Avenue. You know, there's wonderful lectures. They're all wonderful, but there's a special flavor to those. And he's saying it's absolutely insane to think that there's no God. And he always would come to the point of arguing by the, argument by design. I remember reading about that long before I came to Krishna Consciousness. In, I think it was Thomas Aquinas, who was a scientist, a theologian, great theologian, call him a saint, St. Thomas Aquinas. And he had various arguments for the existence of God. And the most cogent, the one that Prabhupada always used, was the argument from design, meaning that just look at all the design we see around us in nature. Obviously, things that are like this building and these paintings, they're actually designed by human consciousness. But what about the beautiful trees and the flowers and the incredible organization of the where the sun comes up just in time? Everyone has a phone, and they'll tell you just when sunrise is. Well, how do they know? Because it's been doing it like that for years, and you can predict exactly what the moment is when it's going to come up. And all of that organization, and the most amazing thing, we're walking around in these bodies. Bodies are just, every body is, but we're familiar with our own body. Just how complex it is, how one little, Prabhupada had worked in the chemical line, as he put it, for a long time. And he's explained how, what is it, I forget, some very severe poison he mentioned, is one drop of it. If you happen to take it in your tongue, you'll die within seconds. What is it? Cyanide, potassium cyanide, yes. and how does that happen? I mean, this complex body, it must attack a very essential part, working mechanism in the body, and whatever it is that the heart gives out, But all of the doings of the blood and the circulation system and the breathing and it's just incredible. So if you come across a car, and it's got all of these different departments in it, and there's a team of engineers who designed it. Nowadays they're so complicated, even more than earlier. So you don't think, oh, isn't that wonderful? It just came out of being. It just, it just happened to be there. You know the story of Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton was a pioneer scientist. Everyone's heard his name. And he figured out something about the solar system and how the planets were going around the sun and all this. So he had built a little miniature model, and he had it in his room, and he was looking at it, and a friend walked in. And he said, oh, that's really amazing. That's beautiful. Who made that? And Newton said, no one. It just came about. It's like, come on, Well, if you think that the model must have a maker, why don't you think that because the guy was an atheist, why do you think that the original doesn't have a maker? An intelligence to organize all of these. So it's a kind of irrefutable argument. At least you got to get to the point that there's an intelligence that has arranged all of these things in nature. Just as in our artificial cities and everything, there's obviously an intelligence or a number of intelligence people who have engineered it and built it and figured it out. So there's a supreme intelligence for all the natural things. There's no human beings did it. So that's one way of what it does is it brings you to the point of seeing that, oh, we can't see these things. We have to understand an indication of the existence of God. But what the nature of the Lord is, what the nature of that intelligence is, how we can relate to it or know it, that's a mystery to us. But if at least we accept the likelihood of the existence, then it should pique our interest to try to investigate. This is what human life, this is that famous phrase at the very beginning of the Vedanta Sutras. Who can say? Very easy verse. Atato? Yes. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. There's actually 4 words there. Ata Brahma Jigyasa. So it's interesting to start a book out with now, therefore, you should inquire into Brahman. So how do you start a book out with therefore? Well, Vedanta Sutras, it's the pinnacle of Vedic wisdom, right? It's the anta, Veda anta. It's the end of all knowledge. And it's not an accident that Prabhupada's name, he was given the name of Bhakti Vedanta. That the end of all Vedic knowledge is bhakti to Krishna, devotional service. Krishna says it. He says, Vedaishta sarva ahameva vedya. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. I was just reading this beautiful set of verses in the Bhagavatam, first canto, 2nd chapter. Vasudeva para Veda, Vasudeva para Maka, Vasudeva para Yoga, Vasudeva para Kriya, Vasudeva param Jnanam, Vasudeva parang tapaha, Vasudeva paro dharmo, Vasudeva parangatihi. It's a great verse. He says all the Vedas lead to Vasudeva, are meant for knowing Vasudeva, just as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. There are so many varieties of books. There's a Karma Kanda section. There's some that don't seem to have anything to do with Vasudeva. But when you understand from the Bhagavad Gita and other books like Srimad Bhagavatam, that the whole complicated universe is nothing but the different energies of Krishna. And that includes us. We're also part of his energy. In other words, there's no place, there's no square angstrom unit that Krishna is not involved, that he didn't have influence in creating it, because it's all his energy. So how could the Vedic knowledge not lead to him ultimately? There's so many varieties of knowledge that you can have. You can become an expert in mining, in food engineering, so many things. But what you don't know is that all of that relates ultimately back to Krishna, and that the whole goal of human life is to reawaken our understanding and our knowledge of God and Krishna and the relationship that's already there. Otherwise, no matter what you do in this life, you're going to take another birth and start over again. And in this age, nobody knows anything about the Vedic restrictions and leading a sinless life, basically. So you likely lose the human form of life, which is a great tragedy. We should realize the great value of it. So here we have some statements from Krishna. Avyakto is invisible. Who can deny that? Achintya is inconceivable. Krishna will speak about that later. He says some hear about the soul and they think it's amazing, and some don't believe in the soul, because it's invisible. And avikarya doesn't change, in contrast to the body. The body is always changing. Everything around us is changing. This is all asat. Asat means constantly changing. And in one understanding, that means it's not as real as the sat. We don't say it's false, but just like, is a dream false? The dream itself is not false. You're having a real dream. It's affecting you. You're emotionally involved with it one way or another. It can be a nightmare. It can be a very nice dream, right? So the dream is real, but it's not what you think it is while you're having the dream. While you're having the dream, you may think that this is reality, right? This is who I am. This person is chasing me, whatever. It's very real for you, but it's not. But then you wake up and you see it's not real. So that ever-changeability and the ephemerality of material world means that we shouldn't become absorbed to the negligence of the real, of the sat, of the consciousness of spirit. But with our blunt senses and our dull mind, we can't perceive that directly. So we need an intermediary. Prabhupada would call it a transparent via media, we call it, who can give us the ways and means of refining our senses, purifying our senses and our minds so we can come to perceive it. Why does Krishna come? He comes as the deity. He comes as his holy name. Because we can hear the sounds, we can see the form and see and serve him. So he comes through supposedly material elements. Now if someone has no faith, they're steeped in doubt, then it's that they come in and say, oh, they're just worshiping an idol. Let me go out and go down to the bar. Much more interesting. So, but someone who's doing some of the process of bhakti yoga can progressively feel more of the presence of Krishna in the deity, and especially in the holy name. That's the means of this, the process in this age, chanting the holy name. Krite yadhyayato vishnum, tvetayam nichato makai, dvaparai parichayam, kalotad harikirtanat. Can anyone explain what that verse means? Our scholar over here. Krite yadhyayato vishnum. You ever heard that one before? This is a very nice verse. It describes, Krite means the Satya Yuga. In whatever you can achieve in Satya Yuga, when people could live for 100,000 years sometimes, and through meditation, that was the process of meditation. That's when Valmiki meditated for 60,000 years, and he had realization, and he wrote the Ramayana, and so many others meditated for a long time. So what you could achieve through meditation in the Satya Yuga, and with elaborate sacrifices in the Treta Yuga, and through very opulent deity worship, we do the best we can here. We have all these ornaments for the Lord, but can you imagine if they're really diamonds, really rubies, really jewels and gold? And that's what they had in the Dwapara Yuga. And magnificent temples. Some of them are still present in South India, you'll see. So through elaborate deity worship in Dwapara Yuga, you can achieve the same thing in this age by chanting the holy name. What's easier? To arrange for a magnificent temple and all the pujaris and maintain that, or to get a set of beads for $2.99. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It's been made very simple and easy for us, and even still, sometimes, not always, sometimes we fall asleep when we're chanting. I'm just kidding. He's getting much better. He's doing much better. He's fighting it. No, you too. See, I don't even see him. But the thing is, it's a struggle, to chant regularly and chant with good attention. Pay attention. That's an offense, avoid the offenses. But it's feasible for us. We can do it, Especially the kirtan, that's like attractive in and of itself, the chanting and dancing and things like that. So. What does these processes do? The process of chanting. Well, it purifies our consciousness. Cheto darpana marjanam. Lord Chaitanya, in his famous verse, the very first words of his Shikshastika. Cheto darpana marjanam. The marjanam means to wipe clean, and the consciousness is compared to a mirror. And if the mirror is dusty, you look at it, but you can't see yourself clearly. You get a distorted view who you are. And so everyone is thinking, I'm the body, but you're not really the body. But if you polish the consciousness a little bit, you can see, you can realize the truth of what Krishna is speaking here. Realize your pure spirit. And Bhava Mahadavagni Nivapanam. That ends the blazing forest fire of birth and death. You're on your way back to Godhead. So I'm not going to go through the whole, even the first verse. I wrote an article many years ago, 7 metaphors. They're all metaphors. Lord Chaitanya describes the benefits of chanting. Maybe we'll do it another time. But all of this knowledge Krishna is revealing here, it's important as a foundation for our devotional life. Okay, any comments, questions? Okay, text 26. Atachainam nityajatam nityam va manyase mritam tatapi tvam mahabaho nainam shoti tamarhasi. Notice that's a theme here. The previous verse also he's saying you shouldn't lament. You shouldn't lament. You see, because that was his problem. He was lamenting the imminent death of his beloved friends, relatives. If, however, you think that the soul or the symptoms of life will always be born and die forever, you still have no reason to lament, O mighty armed. Purport: there is always a class of philosophers, almost akin to the Buddhists, who do not believe in the separate existence of the soul beyond the body. When Lord Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita, it appears that such philosophers existed, and they were known as the Lokayatikas and Vaibhashikas. Such philosophers maintain that life symptoms take place at a certain mature condition of material combination. The modern material scientists and materialist philosophers also think similarly. According to them, the body is a combination of physical elements, and at a certain stage, the life symptoms developed by interaction of the physical and chemical elements. The science of anthropology is based on this philosophy. Currently, many pseudo-religions, now becoming fashionable in America, are also adhering to this philosophy, as are the nihilistic, non-devotional Buddhist sects. Even if Arjuna did not believe in the existence of the soul, as in the Vaibhashika philosophy, there would still have been no cause for lamentation. No one laments the loss of a certain bulk of chemicals and stops discharging his prescribed duty. On the other hand, in modern science and scientific warfare, so many tons of chemicals are wasted for achieving victory over the enemy. According to the Vaibhashika philosophy, the so-called soul or Atma vanishes along with the deterioration of the body. So in any case, whether Arjuna accepted the Vedic conclusion that there is an atomic soul, or he did not believe in the existence of the soul, he had no reason to lament. According to this theory, since there are so many living entities generating out of matter every moment, and so many of them are being vanquished every moment, there's no need to grieve for such incidents. If there were no rebirth for the soul, Arjuna had no reason to be afraid of being affected by sinful reactions due to his killing his grandfather and teacher. But at the same time, Krishna sarcastically addressed Arjuna as Mahabahu, mighty armed, because he, Krishna, at least, did not accept the theory of the Vaibhashikas, which leaves aside the Vedic wisdom. As a Kshatriya, Arjuna belonged to the Vedic culture, and it behooved him to continue to follow its principles. So this is a verse in which Krishna is taking on the position of almost a prosecutor. He's covering all the bases. If Arjuna didn't accept what he just said, that the soul is eternal, so okay, so then they're just chemicals, right? So what's the big deal? In other words, from every direction, Krishna is defeating Arjuna's argument that he shouldn't fight. But this is really just a little bit of a side argument. Now he comes back again to transmigration and rebirth for the soul. Jatasa hi dhruvo mrityur dhruvam janma matasya cha tasmad apariharyate natvam shoti tamarhasi. So again and again he's saying, do not lament. One who has taken his birth is sure to die, and after death one is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. Purport. One has to take birth according to one's activities of life, and after finishing one term of activities, one has to die to take birth for the next. In this way, one is going through one cycle of birth and death after another without liberation. This cycle of birth and death does not, however, support unnecessary murder, slaughter, and war. But at the same time, violence and war are inevitable factors in human society for keeping law and order. The Battle of Kurukshetra, being the will of the Supreme, was an inevitable event, and to fight for the right cause is the duty of a Kshatriya. Why should he be afraid of or aggrieved at the death of his relatives, since he was discharging his proper duty? If he did not deserve to break the law, thereby becoming subjected to the reactions of sinful acts, of which he was so afraid. By avoiding the discharge of his proper duty, he would not be able to stop the death of his relatives, and he would be degraded due to his selection of the wrong path of action. So this is again reiterating this idea that death is inevitable for all of us. So the real question is, what does that mean for us? What does it mean for our endeavors to try to accumulate wealth or prestige or whatever it is in this lifetime? It means it's absurd. It means that it's just a big trick of Maya. We're buying into Maya's con game. This is her job, thankless task, to convince us that we belong here, that this is your field of activity, you can succeed this way, make your efforts this way, and enjoy this and avoid that. And we're absorbed in that. That's the dualities of this world. Ichcha, dvesha, samutena. So, but here Krishna is in this chapter, he's refuting that. He starts out with the reality of transmigration of the soul, which completely refutes the idea of trying to succeed on this plane, this relative plane of asat, when we're sat, it's incompatible. And so we're every birth, we're disappointed. Now, in lower births, we don't know anything. You just struggle hard to survive. You know, I take these evening walks, and I have the flashlight, so I'm trying not to step on any bugs. Now, with the cold, you don't see so many. But every so often, there's a bug come out. And they sense that I'm coming, you know. And so they're not very smart. They freeze, you know. So they give me a nice big target if I want to. But naturally, I avoid stepping on them. But just imagine, I mean, we were there. What kind of life that is, you know. There's no memory from, you know, previous, you know, it's just like you're living in the moment. Can I survive? Can I get something to eat? You know, and the mating is there, you know, and resting, eating, sleeping, mating, depending. But just contemplate that, you know, to be in that kind of a situation. And what's your future? All right, coming up a little bit to the next next bug, the flying bugs, you know, the ones that are crawling, that is a flying bug. Then you become a bird, you know, whatever. But it's such a tragedy for the soul. Here's a soul who belongs in the spiritual world, who is, you know, Satchidananda. That's our real nature. And we've completely forgotten that and embraced these different forms of matter that are constructed in such a way as to bewilder us that somehow we can enjoy, you know. But then it always crashes. And then, you know, times come, you dies, and someone steps on the bug or whatever. And then up you go, you know, out, oh, you know, I'm not dead. I always say, you know, in the human form, what's the first thing that happens when you die? It says, oh my God, I'm not dead. Who are these people? You know? I mean, we read about it in the Bhagavatam. It's meant to, you know, shock you into doing the right thing. Like this chapter we're reading now. This the one after another about the material forest of enjoyment, Jada Bharat in the morning. Very instructive. He's painting a very bleak picture of material life. It's not like, well, you know, you can do okay. No, it's not okay. It's a complete tragedy for the human soul and the human body to waste the time trying to enjoy, forgetting nature and what your real goal is, and to get entangled in all these things and commit all these sins and all the suffering, you know. And the great devotees, they feel that. That's why they work so hard to help others to learn knowledge and take up Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada, as many others, great souls, are a great example of sacrifice. If you read the Madhya Leela of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's so instructive. Lord Chaitanya is on his trip, his tour, South India. It's 6 years of travel. And he himself had so many adventures, and he blessed so many, with enlightenment just by seeing him and coming in touch with him. And the Kurma Brahman, he wanted to leave and get his home and his family and come with Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya family said, no, you stay here. Yari Dekataka Krishna Upadesh. Whoever you see, whoever you meet, you give them the instruction of Krishna, just like he speaks in the Bhagavad Gita. And in this way, you become a guru and deliver this land. Help me deliver this land. And Prabhupada says in his purport there, this is a model for what Krishna consciousness is all about. Is that we should try to be Krishna conscious and give Krishna consciousness. This is the ideal life. And Krishna showers so much mercy on the souls who do that. And the more that we make efforts in that direction, the more blessed we are. So that's what we're reading this. We're reading Prabhupada's book, which is the fruit of his work and his surrender in that regard. And we should take full advantage of it. So, Vyata Saiduva Mrityu. So death is sure for one who's born, but birth is sure for one who's died. So again, he's saying, so where's the question of lamentation? The real question is, you do your duty. Yes, it's very painful. I understand that because you love these people. But you have an overarching duty, and in the ultimate end, it's auspicious for everyone. Even those who are killed on the battlefield. They're not killed. And because Krishna is there, they achieve a higher birth. Something that go back. So in Bhagavatam, it seems to be saying they get their original form back in the spiritual world. So where's the downside? The downside is if Arjuna doesn't fight, then he's committing a sin, he'll suffer, and he'll be impeding Krishna's mission. So all of this is directed toward getting him to fight, to surrender. Okay, more argument for fighting. Next, text 28. Avyaktadini bhutani vyaktamadhyani bharata avyakta nadananyeva tattaka paridevana. All created beings are unmanifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when annihilated. So what need is there for lamentation? Purport. Accepting that there are two classes of philosophers, one believing in the existence of the soul and the other not believing in the existence of the soul, there is no cause for lamentation in either case. Non-believers in the existence of the soul are called atheists by followers of Vedic wisdom. Yet even if, for argument's sake, we accept this atheistic theory, there's still no cause for lamentation. Apart from the separate existence of the soul, the material elements remain unmanifested before creation. From this subtle state of non-manifestation comes manifestation, just as from ether air is generated, from air fire is generated, from fire water is generated, and from water earth becomes manifested. From the earth, many varieties of manifestations take place. Take, for example, a big skyscraper manifested from the earth. When it is dismantled, the manifestation becomes again unmanifested and remains as atoms in the ultimate stage. The law of conservation of energy remains, but in course of time, things are manifested and unmanifested. That is the difference. Then what causes there for lamentation either in the stage of manifestation or unmanifestation? Somehow or other, even in the unmanifested stage, things are not lost. Both at the beginning and at the end, all elements remain unmanifested, and only in the middle are they manifested, and this does not make any real material difference. And if we accept the Vedic conclusion, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, that these material bodies are perishable in due course of time, antabanta ime deha, that means the bodies have an end, but that the soul is eternal, nitya shokta sharirina, then we must remember always that the body is like a dress, therefore, garments. Therefore, why lament the changing of a dress? The material body has no factual existence in relation to the eternal soul. It is something like a dream. In a dream, we may think of flying in the sky or sitting on a chariot as a king. But when we wake up, we can see that we are neither in the sky nor seated on the chariot. The Vedic wisdom encourages self-realization on the basis of the non-existence of the material body. Therefore, in either case, whether one believes in the existence of the soul or one does not believe in the existence of the soul, there is no cause for lamentation for loss of the body. Now, this idea of the dream, which is brought up here, like the material life is like a dream. Prabhupada says it's like when we wake up, during our day, we usually are awake for longer than we sleep, right? Let's assume that 8 hours versus 16. So, but he said, okay, when you dream, then you forget all about your day life. You could have another body, another form, another place, so all kinds of things are happening. And then when you wake up, you remember a little bit about the dream, and then you go about your business, you forget about it, right? So, but the day activity is also of the nature of a dream. Things are constantly changing. Ultimately, all the matter devolves into its constituent parts and gets annihilated. It may take a longer time, but it's still. So this brings up one of my favorite verses, the one that's appears in the Bhagavatam 5 times. It's an important verse, right? Arteya vidyamane pi sangsritir nanavartate dhyayato vishayanasya swapna nartagamo yatha. So arte in this case means, in truth, avidyamane pi is unreal. Sangsriti, what's unreal? Samsara. Yes, it seems to be very painful. We're going through old age, death, all these things, but it's of the nature of a dream. But Dhyayado Vishayan, should be a familiar phrase from the 2nd chapter here. I will read it soon. One who is meditating or absorbed in the objects of the senses, sense gratification. For such a person, which includes most conditioned souls, that dream doesn't cease. Swapna nartagamoyata, just as in a dream, a nightmare, the pains don't cease until you wake up. So the whole point is to wake up. Jeev jago, jeev jago. That's the injunction here. He wants Arjuna to wake up to the reality that no one's going to die, in the ultimate sense. Everyone's going to go on and live. And your duty, if you perform your duty, then you'll be on the safe side and everything will be auspicious. If you don't, then you'll suffer. Then you'll be cause of society going through more suffering. So there's all different arguments here. But this arte vidyamane pi, to see material life as no more significant than a dream. So then what should we do then? Should we just surrender to the dream and try to enjoy it? No. Because then you're losing your chance to come to the reality. What does it mean? Asato ma sadgamaya. One of the part of those phrases. Asato ma sadgamaya. 2 meanings. Prabhupada always took ma to be not. It says, don't stay in the impermanent, come to the real. Come to the unreal, to the real. Or it could be thought as a prayer to God. Ma means me. Oh my Lord, please take me from the unreal to the real, from the temporary to the eternal, from death to immortality, from darkness to light. So that's a wonderful little verse there, encouraging human beings to take up the mission of succeeding in the mission of life, of human life. And when you start doing that, you want to help others to do it too, because it awakens that empathetic, natural feeling. The real devotees, what is Prahlad's famous phrase, this word shoche comes up, right? In the shoche, you have no reason to lament. So there you have a verse for Prahlad Maharaj, the great devotee, say, I'm lamenting. What is this? So first he says, Naivod vijay, padadodatta yavaitaranyas, twadvi yagayana mahamata magnachitta. He's speaking to Nrsingadev, Lord Nrsingadev, in his Komala feature. As soon as he saw Prahlad, he cooled down. His ears, right? You've seen the Komala means gentle, Nrsingadev. Nrsingadev is known for not being so gentle to the demons, right? Garjantam, Garjayantam. Did you ever learn that verse? You should all learn that verse. Garjantam, Garjayantam. He screams in anger, and they scream in fear. So he screams and causes others to scream. Garjantam, Garjayantam. Nijupata patalam. And with his many arms, he's tearing apart the demons. Rupyantam, he searches them out. tapayantam, in order to cause them so much suffering. Who is he searching out? The Daityas, the demons. Diti Jam, those who were born of Diti, the Daityas, Where does he search them all up and down in heaven and in earth? And then Roshantam, Roshantam, how's it go? Didibudibajam, Chapayantam, Chabantam, Krandantam, Roshayantam, Dishi Dishi Satatam, Sanghadantam. So everywhere, Dishi, in all directions, he's searching them out and yelling at them and berating them and attacking them and killing them. But by the same token, he's Krishna. So he's also seeing the devotees, and he's maintaining the world with his many hands, and so he has a gentle side too. So that's when, as soon as he sees Prahlad, his Komala Nrsinga. So Prahlad's praying to him. This is near the end of his prayers, and he's saying, Naibod Vijay Padadadate Avaitadanistradvi Yagaya Namahamata Magna Chitta. Those two lines alone are so revelatory. I am not in any way disturbed. Now here's Prahlad, what he had been through. He had his father tried to kill him in every way that he knew how. First, he just told his henchmen, just cut him to pieces. Their weapons didn't work. They couldn't. He had some kind of force field. I mean, you could just imagine. He wasn't feeling any pain. He was just meditating on Krishna. So they threw him off a cliff, and there's a painting where Krishna has his hands. He brought him down easy. The elephant's trying to crush him. That didn't work. Boil him in oil. That's got to work, right? No, it just felt cool as anything. So he couldn't hurt Prahlad. So that means he was undisturbed in all of these things. Naiva Udvijay means to be disturbed. Naiva Udvijay. Why? Because he's with Nrsingadev. He's with Krishna on the other. He's by complete absorption, and Krishna is across the Vaitarani river, separating the material from the spiritual world. So if you're with Krishna by means of your consciousness, then you don't feel the suffering so much. You may be conscious. So then what does he do for recreation? At any moment I can chant and sing your glories and immerse my mind in an ocean of nectar. So how can there be any lamentation? But now in the next verse he says, Shoche, I'm lamenting. Here he said, Nashochati. Shoche, why is he lamenting? Vimukha chetasa indiyata maya sukhaya banamudvahito vimudan. Because of these fools and rascals who are trying to enjoy the flickering mayak happiness of sense gratification. I'm lamenting for them. And therefore the next verse, which I won't get into in detail, says, therefore I have to stay here. I'm not going to wander off into some secluded place and just do my bhajan. I'm going to stay here because I see there's no hope for them except you, and I have to give them to you. This is the determination of the devotee. And this is Prabhupada's mood. You read those purports, it's kind of central to the whole Sankirtan mission. And so that's what Prabhupada did, and we're benefiting from it at every moment. These classes, these temples, these books, the deities, the holy name, everything is there because Prabhupada had that mood of Prahlad. Okay, one more verse. Text 29. Ashtaryava pashyati kaschyarenam Ashcharyavad bhadati tathaiva chanyaha Ashcharyavat chainam anyak shrinoti Shudpapenam vedana chaiva kaschit. So now Krishna is saying, okay, I understand. Yes, the soul is very amazing. Some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. Purport: since Gita Upanishad is largely based on the principles of the Upanishads, it is not surprising to also find this passage in the Katha Upanishad 127. I'll say, you say, Shravanayapi bahubiyo nalabhya Shinvantopi bahavoyam na vidyuhu Ashcharyo bhakta kushalosya labdha Ashcharyosya gyata kushalanushishtah. Okay, so that's the meaning of that verse is similar to the verse in the Gita. The fact that the atomic soul is within the body of a gigantic animal, in the body of a gigantic banyan tree, and also in the microbe germs, millions and billions of which occupy only an inch of space, is certainly very amazing. Men with a poor fund of knowledge and men who are not austere cannot understand the wonders of the individual atomic spark of spirit, even though it is explained by the greatest authority of knowledge, who imparted lessons even to Brahma, the first living being in the universe. Owing to a gross material conception of things, most men in this age cannot imagine how such a small particle can become both so great and so small. So men look at the soul proper as wonderful either by constitution or by description. Illusioned by the material energy, people are so engrossed in subject matters for sense gratification that they have very little time to understand the question of self-understanding, even though it is a fact that without this self-understanding, all activities result in ultimate defeat in the struggle for existence. Perhaps they have no idea that one must think of the soul and thus make a solution to the material miseries. Some people who are inclined to hear about the soul may be attending lectures in good association, but sometimes owing to ignorance, they are misguided by acceptance of the supersoul and the atomic soul as one without distinction of magnitude. It is very difficult to find a man who perfectly understands the position of the supersoul, the atomic soul, their respective functions and relationships, and all other major and minor details. And it is still more difficult to find a man who has actually derived full benefit from knowledge of the soul, and who is able to describe the position of the soul in different aspects. But if, somehow or other, one is able to understand the subject matter of the soul, then one's life is successful. The easiest process for understanding the subject matter of self, however, is to accept the statements of the Bhagavad Gita, spoken by the greatest authority, Lord Sri Krishna, without being deviated by other theories. But it also requires a great deal of penance and sacrifice, either in this life or in the previous ones, before one is able to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna can, however, be known as such by the causeless mercy of the pure devotee and by no other way. So that's what we're trying to do here. And real quick, what verses that came to mind here, these three verses by Lord Rishabhdev. First of all, he condemns those who are simply engaged in sense gratification as mad. Nunam pramatta kurate vikarma yadindriya pritaya arpanoti nasadamanya yata atmano yamasanapi kleshalasha deha. He says, it is certainly true that those who are simply after indriya priti, sense gratification, are mad. Kurate vikarma, because in such activity they must perform vikarma, gross sinful activity, which ensures them of another material body, which ensures you of a great deal of suffering. So the little bits of pleasure that you enjoy are the seeds of the great suffering in the next life, and probably in a subhuman life. So then he gives a verse that exactly echoes this purport. Parabhavas defeat. Parabhavas means defeat. Parabhavas tavada bodha jato yavan jigyasata atma tattvam yavat kriyas tavad idam manovai karmatmakam yena shirira bandha. That is certainly true. The yava tavad, as long as you do not inquire into the truth of the soul, into Atma Tattva, you will be defeated, meaning that you'll die and you'll be born in a material body. A bodha jato means is born of ignorance. Yavan, therefore, we have to inquire from the right source about the right topic. But bodha yavan jigyasata atma tattvam. And because as long as you don't inquire, then you're sure to be performing fruitive activity. Because we have to act. Kriyas. Yavat kriyas, as long as you perform such activity, tavadidam manovai karmatmakam, your mind, which is the vehicle of transmigration, will remain full of all of these fruitive desires for activity. Yes, karma visham prayunkte. Yavat kriyas tavadidam manovai karmatmakam yena shirira bandha, which keeps you bound up to a material body. This is the vehicle of transmigration. All of these fruitive acts that you perform, they leave impressions in the mind, and there's karma that needs to be, paid for. So what's the solution? Evamana karma visham prayunkte abhidyapan upadyaman. Karma visham means that forced by your karmic previous activities to take a birth and keep acting materially. But your avidyatman upadiyamani. Avidya is obviously in ignorance. So then he has this key phrase. Evamana karma vashampayunta abhidya upadiyamane priti nayavan mai vasudeve namuchate dehi yogena tavat. Priti means love. Rishabdev is revealing. Therefore, as long as one does not have love for me, Vasudev, he's identifying, he's revealing his incarnation. One will not be able to break free of the bondage of the body. There's no mukti without bhakti. That's the thing. That the love of Krishna will automatically give you that liberation you're looking for, and so much more. And that's what we're striving for. Okay, so let's adjourn and we'll prepare for the Kirtan and Arti. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.